Hey you guys, it's Peter and welcome to my channel. Peter likes books, and today is another book review. I was like driving around and I was finishing this book and I was like, I'm gonna go home when I finish this book because I just had to finish. I had like 2 hours left of it and I actually finished the whole thing. I just like listened straight through. I listened to my audiobooks at 2 times speed, so it was like an hour that it took me, and I was driving around and I was drinking my coffee and I was just like so engrossed in this book. The ending was so good. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna do a review of this book. And I was like, I've been doing so many reviews lately. Like the majority of my booktube videos are reviews. And I was like, I wanna do something else. But I was like, I guess it's okay because this is a booktube channel for books and I'm reviewing books, but I know that people don't necessarily love book reviews. My book reviews are always spoiler free, because I don't want to ruin the book for somebody else. So today's book that we are going to be talking about is Little Monsters by Kara Thomas. Here is the cover of the book. Now, there are actually 2 covers. I think I'm going to put both of them up. This is the one that's on Goodreads. And then this is the one that I actually read. I don't know why there's 2 different covers. There might have been one and a re-release of it or something like that. She also has a book out called The Cheerleaders, and I think I'm going to probably be reading that sometime this month. So yet again, another Missing Girls book, and I have to say, it held its own. I was very, very interested in it. Let me read you the caption of the book. Hold on, please. Oh, I had it all queued up. Okay. Little Monsters by Kara Thomas. Casey is a new girl in Broken Falls. When she moved in with her father, she stepped into a brand new life. A life with a stepbrother, a stepmother, and a strangest of all, an adoring younger half-sister. Casey's new life is eerily charming compared with the volatile mother. And everyone is so nice in Broken Falls. She's even been welcomed into a tight new circle of friends. Bailey and Jade invite her to do everything with them, which is why it's so odd when they start acting distant. And when they don't invite her to the biggest party of the year, it doesn't exactly feel like an accident. But Casey will never be able to ask because Bailey never makes it home from that party. Suddenly, Broken Falls doesn't seem so welcoming after all, especially once everyone starts looking to the new girl for answers. Casey is about to learn some very important lessons. Sometimes, appearances can be deceiving. Sometimes, when you're the new girl, you shouldn't trust anyone. This book was very, very interesting to me. And I gave it 4 stars. I probably would give it, I would say, a 4.3. It was a really good read. I really enjoyed it. But for me, what takes you from like that 4.2, 4.3, 4.5 to a 5 is if there is like some profound learning experience from the book, or if I was moved or whatever. I will say I cried at the end. In kind of a strange area, I cried. But it was really well done. I thought the characterization was fantastic. I really felt like I knew these characters and the interactions between them. I will say this, I thought Kara Thomas did a fantastic job of the dialogue of teenagers and the way that they would talk and the things that they engaged in and those kinds of things. It didn't seem to me like they were supposed to be 17, 18, going on 14, which is how I feel sometimes when I'm reading like young adult books. I feel like, well, they kind of aged them down, you know, for the reader. It didn't feel like that. So I don't know if this would be considered new adult or young adult. But like I read, it's about a girl and she moves to this hotel. She comes from like this really kind of hectic background with her mother, and it was a very volatile situation. So she moves in with her father that she doesn't know, and to a town called Broken Falls, Wisconsin. I think she's in Wisconsin. And it's like in the wintertime. It starts in February and it's like snowy and very beautiful. I would say the scenery is actually a character in the book as well. And there's kind of a paranormal element to it, which is interesting, the way that it plays out in the book. It kind of weaves in and out, so you never really know, is this a paranormal book or is this a true crime kind of telling of a fiction book? It very much reads like a true crime book, and I have to say, there are characters that change throughout this book that you do not expect. And you know, I love that when you read a book and for better or for worse, you know, whether they're heroed or villainized, the characters that you know are not necessarily who you think they might be, if that makes sense. And this is definitely one of those books where at the very end, you're kind of like, I did not see that coming. Now, I have to tell you, there's only, I would say, 5 characters in this that kind of play a constant role throughout the book. So you know it has to be kind of one of those 5 characters. But at the same time, it's like it could go in 20 different directions. I mean, and you know, Kara Thomas does some things in this book that are like old school mystery Agatha Christie, where like she'll throw out something on page 10 and then it comes and plays back out. on like the 3 pages before the end, which I don't know really how I feel about that with mystery books. If you're reading a mystery book because you're trying to solve it, it's one thing. I feel like that's kind of a cheat. If you're reading a mystery book where you're just reading it for enjoyment or for the journey like I am, then I don't really care. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of fun. It's like, oh, now I know why you did that early on, if that makes sense. There are also intertellings of this one girl, the girl that's missing, her journal entries, which are very, very telling. And they don't really start happening until like halfway through the book. The main character of Casey is complicated. I love reading a complicated character. She has a stepbrother named Andrew who is complicated as well. Her 2 friends are not like the most popular girls. Their names are Bailey and Jade, and they're complicated as well. And the whole story is very, very complicated. She has a stepmother who she doesn't really know if she can trust or not trust. Her dad, who she doesn't really have a relationship with. So it's like all of these different issues. And you know, I've seen this done in other books before, but I have to say, like, I thought it was done really, really well in this book. I was super impressed with it, and is it not so funny that I can't even remember the last book that I read? But the book was similar to that. I don't know why. I cannot remember. Not the last book that I read, but Two Can Keep a Secret. There were similarities between this and Two Can Keep a Secret, and I have to say that if somebody told me that Kara Thomas was, you know, an alias for, why can't I think of her name? Karen McManus. I wouldn't be surprised. Like, the writing style is very similar. The characterization is similar. I will tell you that if you like Karen McManus, Kara Thomas, I feel like delves a little bit deeper into the character on a more psychological level. And it's definitely a psychological thriller. And you kind of don't really know, like, throughout the book. Like I said, there's, like, paranormal aspects that come into play. It's all based around this one girl. She goes missing after a party. And you don't know, like, where she is. There's really no clues. Clues are pointed in the wrong direction. Of course, there's a police chief. There's an investigator that comes into play, and you know, all that kind of stuff. And the main character doesn't really know who she can trust. The thing I have to tell you, okay, having read so many young adult books in my, you know, the last 3 or 4 years on BookTube, as well as so many phenomenal psychological thrillers like Behind Closed Doors Behind Her Eyes by Sarah Pinborough, and the Woman in the Window, fantastic, by AJ Finn, I think. That, you know, we live in a time today of the untrustworthy narrator. So it's like, that even can be like, you could find out in the last 5 pages that the narrator of the book has huge psychological issues, or, you know what I mean? And like, towards the end of this book, I was like, everything I thought the direction of the book was going to go into, it wasn't going into that direction. And so I thought, well, this is weird. Is this going to be like one of those We Were Liars by E. Lockhart, where you think it's something and then you find out literally in the last chapter or the epilogue that it's completely something different than you thought, which was what Behind Her Eyes was like with Sarah Pinborough. And in certain books, I love that, but in other books, like, it doesn't work out well for me. This book worked really well for me in the end. I have to say, the one thing that if I was like, if Kara Thomas was going to sit here, I thought the book was great. Like, I enjoyed it. I cannot wait to read The Cheerleaders. I may read it next. I'm kind of into this thing when I find an author, I just want to read all their stuff right away. So I might read that next. But I have to tell you, like, if I was going to tell her, like, there was a twist in this book that I really thought was going to happen, and it didn't happen. And, like, and maybe she didn't include it because, and it's at the end. It's, like, who you think, that, like, it's who you think, why this girl is missing. The twist that I thought was going to happen, which would have been, like, it would have just thrown the whole book off. And I really thought that was going to be the case in the end. It didn't happen, and so the book fell short to me. In all honesty, like, if this had happened, if this character had been responsible for it, I think that I would have been more convinced, you know, if that makes sense, of the deepness of this book. And I, honest to God, because on Two Can Keep a Secret with Karen McManus, in the very last sentence, okay, she changes the whole book. And I remember reading that, I was like, that is smart. Like, that is really, really smart reading or writing. But she didn't do that. And I was kind of looking for it. I was kind of like, please, at the very last minute, like, twist it and say something. And it didn't happen. And if you read the book, you'll know what I'm talking about. It comes down to, like, a couple characters that could be responsible for it. And I thought, like, in the last minute, the person that you find to be responsible for it, I thought it was going to be the person least that could be responsible for it. If you read it, you'll know what I'm talking about. I really thought it was going to be that it was going to be a complete twist of, you know, events or turn of events, so to speak. But it wasn't, you know, and I was kind of like, well, I don't know. The thing is, there are so many great suspense thrillers out there right now, and you know, I think to write a suspense thriller is one thing. Like, you have to like map the book out long before you write it. And I mean, as a writer too, I think about this, you know, like I don't know that I'm anybody that could write a mystery thriller, because you have to map it out long in advance. You have to know what's going to happen on the last page before you even start the book, what the characters are going to do, what their motives are, why they act certain ways, whatever, because there's a lot of characters in here that they point the fingers at that later in the book, there was no, like, they were not really suspects whatsoever, and their part in it makes total sense once you read the book. You know what I mean? But like that, it was just kind of like, it was just this thing this happenstance that happened, but they weren't really part of it. Which I love that, because it's very much a red herring in a mystery book. But to write a mystery thriller, I mean, and I think that this is kind of like, it's interesting to me, you know, like we talk about these great young adult authors that are out there today, and there are fantastic young adult authors, but the art of writing a mystery or a thriller for a young adult audience is completely separate, right? Because you have to get in that world, first of all, and you also have to like get in the world of a mystery thriller that could be capable of somebody at that age. I will tell you that at the end, and you know I read a lot of true crime, it really reminded me of the case that actually happened in Indiana, and it happened in Madison, Indiana, and the book is called Cruel Sacrifice. And it was about these girls that killed this 14-year-old girl named Shanda Shear, and that it was very calculated and very devised before it happened. There's actually documentaries on YouTube about it and things like that. And if you ever want to read the book, it's called Cruel Sacrifice by Aphrodite Jones. It's one of the best true crime books I've ever read. The girls are, all the women are out of prison now. It happened the year that I graduated from high school, and they were like my age. So I think like on that level, that's why it affected me deeply, and why that story always like sticks with me. I always remember that. But, you know, I always wondered through the years, like, what would make somebody capable of that, you know? Well, reading this book was interesting, because it goes behind the psychological and it explains what could make somebody at that age capable of plotting and planning somebody's murder. And you literally get to see it, like, word for word. It's very, very interesting. So, I loved this book. I don't know, maybe I would give it more than a 4.3. Maybe I'd give it a 4.6, 4.7. I loved it. I have to tell you, like, I really, like, there were a couple days this week where I just didn't listen to an audiobook at all. But I was extremely intrigued by this. I never got bored of it. It was a really, really good read, and I think you'll enjoy it too if you like that. So if you've read it, put in the comment section below what you thought. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.